All right, guys, good morning. Welcome to the forum. Today's forum, you're here. You know you're at the forum. It's Wednesday, and today's topic is school safety enhancements, which is going to be very interesting. I hope I'm loud enough. Will let me know. Really quickly, let me introduce myself. I'm Phoebe Bensger. I'm one of the four forum facilitators. Kathy Evers, Barbara Bynum, Judy Ann Files. We actually work hard. We make it look easy. Sometimes it's a lot of work to put programs together. So we appreciate your attendance and your interest in learning about what we present on that particular day. Also, always, thanks to Will Woody, he's in the back doing the filming. This is on the City of Montrose YouTube page, as today's will be, and last week's, if you weren't here last week, was an amazing program, so it would almost be worth watching again. So, without droning on and on and on, because give me a microphone and I can do that, I will introduce our speaker, but I want to give a special thanks to Matt Jenkins, who normally he's sitting back there, but he's one of our own. He comes about every week, and he's our liaison with the school district, and the school district has presented. They're not strangers to this forum. They've presented before, and they always bring something very interesting and something that we want you to take out into the community and say, this is what I heard, this is what they're doing, and what they're doing today is going further than our community. It's becoming a statewide model for other school districts, what they've developed today. So, I will introduce our Superintendent of Schools, Dr. Carrie Stephenson. She's been here about 3 or 4?
This is year 4.
4 years, yeah. She is a local girl that came back to Montrose. I feel like we're very lucky to have her. She will introduce the rest of her team, and as always, if you have questions, we want you to ask them at the end of the program after I've handed you a microphone so that everybody can hear your question, and also it can be picked up with what's going out on the YouTube page. So without going on and on, I'll turn the microphone over to Dr. Stephenson.
To be here this morning. So our presentation is on safety teams and school security, school safety. But what we're not going to talk about as much is the physical security of our buildings. We have been working on physical security in Montrose County School District for about 5 or 6 years, adding different things like access controls and cameras and things like that. And so that's not what this presentation is. What we are doing now is really leading the way in mental health and emotional safety for kids, making sure that kids have an avenue to work through their problems, their issues, the struggles that they are having, the trauma, and we have a lot of trauma in this community. And a lot of at-risk factors in this community. And so what we're talking about today is a way to make sure that our kids are getting the support and the help that they need, because we know they cannot attend to academics unless they are in a safe physical and mental space. So if they are overwhelmed with stress or anxiety, they are not attending to their academics the way that they need to be. And so a lot of that is getting in the way these days. And so we really wanted to put something together that wrapped around support for our children and for their families, and giving them the support that they need so that they can eventually attend to their academics. So what we have is, I think, really incredible. I'm a little biased, but I think it's really incredible. I don't know another school district that is putting this kind of program and support together for families and for students. So we are really excited to see how this goes this year. It's a bit of an expansion from last year. and really putting it in a framework that is more user-friendly for our schools and for our families. So without further ado of that, I would like to introduce Megan Farley. Megan is really the person that is heading up this whole initiative. She is we gave her a new title this year, so I have to look. She is our Threat Assessment Health and Safety Manager, and so she is in charge of all of the people that are in this framework, and she is doing a fantastic job. So I will turn the microphone over to Megan.
You don't know your title yet either. Also, I have Hallie Geis with me. She is a behavior coach. You'll see on this. So she came with me this morning just to help answer questions because Jim is not coming this morning. Can you guys hear me?
You just gotta hold it close.
Yeah, sometimes I feel like I don't go over the mic. Okay, so, whoops, I did it. We're moving too fast. There we go. So, let's start with where we started. Like Carrie said, we had a threat assessment and a suicide prevention protocols in place in the district and started to notice that we could actually meet kids before the behavior incident of the threat or wanting to hurt themselves or the crisis intervention. So we started thinking about what that would look like. And you can see here this is the total data as of the fall of 2023. I'm not sure exactly when that got pulled, but that is just our TA and SPP data. And those are the numbers that we started looking at, realizing that we had a lot of students in our schools that need either intensive intensive services or just an evaluation or just a connection at school. So we have our community threat assessment team, and that was created in 2019. And from there, we started building this multi-agency effort. You can also see all of our agencies. Those agencies get together every Tuesday. We talk about kids that have risen to a significant level of concern, needing a community involvement. And from there, we resource out and we case manage within. Yeah, I don't know why this thing is jumping. Like she told me it was going to jump, and it is. So, like I said, we realized that threat assessment was just start of the work. When we mitigate the threat to self or others, then we realized that there was actually a really large lead up to that, and I was the only person doing that. So I couldn't do for the district what all of the students need. So we realized that we could meet the needs before the incident of a threat being a suicide prevention protocol and or a threat to hurt someone else, okay? So, because those are both inside of those programs, and decided that we could put together a team of people inside of the district that could have a lower level of need for when the referrals are made. You can just make the referral if you can answer the question I'm concerned about, okay? So we put together these teams. This is 5 people assigned to 2 to 4 teams, and there's actually 5 teams, so there's a lot of 5s in this, and I'll show you the graph in a minute. But they're, in fact, to assess multiple factors. So the school-based safety team member is your admin, your counselor, your special education maybe, your MTSS teachers. Those folks are meeting about students that maybe they're worried about the conditions of the home. Maybe they're worried about the behavior in the classroom. Maybe they're worried about some medical concerns, but they don't understand how to meet those medical needs inside of a classroom. So from there, if they can answer the question I'm concerned about, they can refer to our district safety team members, which include a social worker, a nurse, a behavior coach, our school resource officer, and we also have school-based therapy. So any student in the district has access to any of those folks if that's needed. We're still working out all of the how-tos, right? Because this is week 4, I think, of week 4? Yeah. Of all the things that need to happen. But we're really excited to watch these teams just kind of start doing what they do best. Let's see. Ah. I don't know why that thing switches like that. All right, so there's the graph, all the 5s. You can see we broke our schools into what we call feeder systems. So there's names here which are, Officer Payne on the wall here is actually on here too. But we broke our schools into systems, and then we have a lead of each of those teams, minus right now I'm the school-based therapy lead, and they have a sergeant down here as well that isn't on here. But so we're looking to fill. We have one behavior coach that is still open, but those are all of the folks, and so they will meet with all of these different schools at least weekly. Some of them are meeting more frequently than that, depending on their need. All right, so we go over what each. So the nurses. So we have 5 district nurses. The nurses do a lot of things, but for the safety team, they can do hands-on assessments to work with families navigating complex medical issues. Like I said, it could be as simple as I broke my arm and I can't do handwriting in school, and the nurses can give some guidance on how to do that, all the way into a very complex disease where a student might be missing a lot of school, and how do we support that. They've built strong, trusting relationships with the providers in the community, which has allowed for enhanced care within the school. So, we can call a provider and say, hey, we have this student, we'd like to talk to you about what you think would be helpful at school, and then we can put those plans in place for that student. And they've been doing some education with families and staff. Hand washing went around last year for all of the students, like how to properly wash your hands. That would also impact like students' attendance if we have a big outbreak of like a gastrointestinal or something like that as well. So just trying to keep everybody healthy while they're there. Then we have a team of social workers, another five social workers. Social workers are learning how to do this work inside of the schools, but the social workers are resources like by trade. So we take what we build and what we assess the family needs, and we start trying to find them resources to address whatever the need is. So this is a pretty broad category, but if a student's stressed about anxiety at school, we're either going to give them coping skills, or we're going to find a therapist that can meet with them to address their anxiety, or we're going to talk to their family about that. So lots of different things they can do there. But the real thing that they're doing is trying to remove these personal wellness barriers in order to support a student's ability to access their educational instruction. There's skill building, and we also are working with their families, because it's hard to come to school and engage with the content when you're worried about food at your house, or you're worried about where you can take a shower, or you're worried about how you can get to school the next day. So we're really working with families trying to address those kinds of needs as well, so that when students come, they're ready and able to come and engage with content. Additionally, they are supporting our suicide risk and threat assessment. I'm still doing all of the level 2 work, but they are working with families that are engaging in that process in the level 1s. My goodness. Behavior coaches. So this is Hallie's team. So behavior coaches are dealing in the realm mostly of classroom behavior. So they are there to help all students. They want them to feel a sense of belonging, find behavioral and academic success in our systems, learn skills necessary for self-regulation and conflict resolution. They're providing professional development around behavior and relationships to our staff, and they're guiding and empowering teachers to build connections with students who exhibit challenging behaviors in the classroom. So if they're concerned about the classroom behavior, now that I've shown you these 3, this is the way that an admin could say this. When they fill it out, the first thing they're concerned about is the classroom behavior, but when Hallie's team goes out, classroom behavior is a thing, but what they also find is there's some medical and or family needs. They're also gonna refer inside of their own team to the social worker or the nurse, and all 2 or 3 of those professionals are gonna work together with the family to create a plan so that the student finds success. So we've tried to make it really simple to the admin that they just need to be concerned about one thing, and then we will from there figure out what we think would also be beneficial later. School-based therapy, currently we have 4 therapists. Those are Access Health employees, but they work inside of our schools. Therapy is open to any student that needs or wants therapy. So that happens within the hours of school. So we're meeting students where they are. They don't have to go to another place for an appointment. They do provide some community provider referrals if they get outside of what can be handled inside school-based, then they will send that out. And we also work very closely with them on their crisis center and for use in our suicide prevention protocols and things like that. And they also refer in and out of there. You got it? There we go. Thank you. I don't know. It keeps wanting to go 2 when I'm very consciously pressing it. School resource officers. Like I said, that's Officer Payne. I should have found that picture for this slide. But school resource officers are either city or county employees. They also are based out of our schools. They're providing a sense of security. They build relationships with students. They're teaching skills like internet safety and drug awareness. And they act as a community liaison as well. Like where you'll see them at the football games or basketball games, volleyball games, things like that. So we're super thankful for these guys too, and it's a great partnership that we have. All right, so I've talked a little bit about this, but the referral process is a general referral form completed by a school administrator, counselor, and then that's sent to me, and then I route them to the appropriate team lead and the feeders members, but what we're finding is that often we are using 2 of our 3 core professionals, if not all 3 of them, as the data has come in, because we're figuring out what's really going on in the moment. And so the behavior coach may be involved longer than the social worker, or the nurse may have a more long-term relationship, but we're having some consultation with all of our members. And we're really working to bring families to the table. Even the behavior coaches have some standards that families come and interact also, because classroom behavior is best addressed when it's consistent, right? So we're really working to get our families also coming, and I keep telling my team that we're really working towards a nothing about us without us kind of model, where we're not going to meet about the family, but we're going to meet with the family and talk to them about what they think would be helpful and what they can do to support. Oh, is that you, Matt?
Yeah, that's me.
Okay. Whoa. All right, so here's some of our very early data. This is week 4. We have 113 referrals as of last night. Those only have one thing in. Our social work team pulled their numbers for me late last night that isn't on the screen. They've met with 80 of our families face-to-face in the first 4 weeks of school and made contact. We've given, and so you can see and some of this is also, this tool is brand new, opened like last Tuesday or something like that. So this data is also catching itself. We're having to go back and re-enter some of these things, but you can see all of our schools have at least one entered referral in there. And that's kind of, this is where we're sitting right now. We were a little bit surprised at how fast some of this came, so we're working on figuring out all the pieces of this, but this is also really exciting to me because it says that people are on board with the idea that we can actually come in and help. So we're really excited about it. We're just trying to figure out all the pieces of how you refer and when you refer and all the things to make the data make a little bit more sense. So that's my early 4 weeks of data.
Vote.
All right, so the so what here is basically that we're going to focus, like Carrie was talking about, on that kids can only engage with their learning when they come to school ready to learn. So we're trying to address all of those barriers, whatever those barriers are. We still do have the TA and SPP protocols because there are going to be students that still go there. But this is really meant to address all of the things. The overall arching hope for us on our teams is that we'll see some balancing and we'll start to be able to tie some academic successes to interventions from our team, but we're definitely, 4 weeks in, not really ready to do that. What did I tell you? Did you want to say anything? Oh my gosh, we have to.
I think one thing with the one thing when you were looking at the data, our program supported students kindergarten through 5th grade last year, and now we're supporting 3-year-olds all the way up through Black Canyon, which has students older than 18 sometimes. And so we have students that were referred last year or families that were referred last year that we're still supporting, and that's not necessarily reflected in this year's data, but yeah, there's a need out there.
So to wrap up, 4 weeks of school, almost 120 referrals. You can see that there's a need. We have been doing this for a while as far as focusing on threat assessment and suicide risk assessment. Thankfully, and please knock on wood, since we started this, we have yet to have a suicide completion of a student in our school district. That is unheard of these days, unfortunately. And so we are really proud of that. And I hope that what you're seeing is an attempt to help earlier and earlier and earlier before students have a sense of hopelessness. What we know right now, we started to dive into this this fall, the science of hope. The science of hope tells us that we have a lot of students that are hopeless, and a sense of hopelessness is exhibited in many different ways, such as misbehavior in the classroom, not being able to control their emotions, not being able to self-regulate, not being able to de-escalate in a situation. And so once we are able to wrap around, then we are able to help students find goals and a pathway. And we have a lot of people here on board that will help them find the willpower to get to that sense of hope. Our kids need hope for their future. And for the last 4 or 5 years, that has been really difficult for them. And so what we're really trying to do is be preventative, get them early, develop a sense of community, develop a sense of wraparound support so that our kids can find hope for their future. This would not be possible in my experience in a really large district. That's why we are in such a sweet spot in Montrose County, and why we are doing this so well is because we truly have the perfect size community to be able to have real collaboration with those agencies that Megan had on one of the first slides, from the Montrose Police Department to Access Health to Hilltop to Montrose Sheriff's Office. I mean, all of these organizations. The fact that they come to the district office once a week for what, 2 hours? For 2 hours once a week, that's unheard of in other places. And they are able to really get to know these kids and these families and be able to, within the agreements that are made and without violating any confidentiality and all of that, they are able to work together and say, you know what, we've got this family, we've worked with this family, we've worked with this kid, here's what we're doing now, here's what we can share with you, there are things that we can't share with you, but here's how we can work together. it is a true collaboration that in my 33 years of experience in education, I have never seen anywhere else. And so we continue to have conversations at the end of every year, at the end of every quarter. How do we get better? How do we improve? How do we find more grant funding to support this? Because we know 120 referrals, 4 weeks, it is needed. And so we are really proud of this work and proud of being able to support our kids and our families in this way. That was your last slide, right? All right. Be happy to open it up to any questions.
So, yes, does anybody have a question? I'll bring you the microphone to you and. Barbara? Well, you told me I better have a question.
Can you talk a little bit how you intend for this to translate into, perhaps, I'll just say it, higher test scores? I mean, I think that, like you kind of talked about, if you are worried about your next meal, it's hard to concentrate on a math test. Can you elaborate on the tie-in between all of this support and how it should translate to academics?
Yeah, it's more than just concentrating. I mean, there is brain research behind stress and anxiety and depression and not being able to attend to the academic learning. So that gets in the way. Stress, anxiety, depression, trauma, that is like putting up a brick wall from being able to retain any other learning. And so until we attend to that for some of these kids, they are not going to improve their test scores. Of course, we are working on academics right alongside of it, but you can tell just in 4 weeks, 120 referrals, we have a lot of kids in our community that are focusing on a lot of these different struggles, whether it's anxiety, depression, what else, food scarcity, domestic violence at home, transportation, all of these very real, what we would hope would be adult problems that are now kid problems. And that's all of that brain research is why we're saying, you know what, we have to focus on this. Schools typically have not had to focus on these kinds of things, but until we do, we're going to continue to get what we've always gotten when it comes to academic scores.
Okay, another question? No, I saw.
My question is, since there's a little over 6,000 students in the district, and you've had, a little over 100, so like about 5,900 students, how are you identifying if they're challenged by this? Like, how are you reaching them? And then what other factors are you looking at that's affecting their academic success besides these areas?
Yeah, so I'll let Megan jump in here as well, but she did have a slide early on where at the school level, there is a team that is always looking at student performance and not just academic, but also behavioral. So from the admin and counselors, MTSS, that means multi-tiered system of support. So anytime a teacher has a concern about a student, whether that be academic or behavioral, we have systems in place to start discussing what that concern is and figure out what interventions are needed for that student, either behavioral, health related, or academic. So that happens at the school level first. So being able to identify kids starts there, really with the teacher in the classroom, most of the time. Sometimes kids will go directly to a counselor, and so that person is part of that school-based team as well. And then Nisha, I forgot the second part of your question.
What other factors are you looking at that are affecting the academic success? Because the CMS scores keep declining. So having 5,900 students, are most of those students dealing with anxiety and stuff, and we haven't identified them? Or what other factors are you seeing that are affecting their academic scores?
Yeah, we have and that is such a complicated question in education, especially public schools, because there are so many variables at play when it comes to CMAS scores. I was just having a conversation with a principal yesterday talking about data and talking about the scores in his particular building. And we talked about, the third graders have to take a test now for the first time on their iPad. Well, we have iPads. Some districts have Chromebooks. Some districts do it paper still. So when a student does not score well, it's really difficult to figure out, is it because of the technology that we're providing? Because they have other assessments that show that the kids are doing much better than they did on the CMAS. And so, yes, absolutely, we are looking at the CMAS, but it is one point of data. And we go into what's called an item analysis so that we can find out exactly the trends that students are, the questions that they are missing and what trends and patterns those have. Then we correlate that and cross-check that with the curriculum resources that we use. Is there something that's being missed? Are we sure that we are addressing the Colorado 2020 academic standards? Because that's what kids are being tested on. So there is a lot at play. Every single one of our schools looks at data, and that's how they are starting out the year right now. We had a professional development day yesterday. A lot of them were showing their school performance frameworks, looking at their CMAS data. We are getting ready to do a full item analysis for the whole district so that we can look at those trends even more. But we are trying to tackle that at every single angle. Anything else to add there? Okay.
What has been the response by the students and the parents? In other words, have you gotten any pushback, like it's none of your business?
Great question.
I mean, the general answer to that, it specifically probably a few times, yes, but the general answer to that is that people know internally what they need help with, and they want the help. And a social worker especially is trained to go in and like really build rapport in a non-judgmental way. We really don't want folks going out with a sense of judgment or anything. And so when you really work with a family and you break down a lot of those brick walls that they've put up, they really do like the help and they're appreciative of the help, and they do understand that this is what they need, because they also don't like being called by the school to come and get their kid for a behavior incident or anything like that. So, or missing because they're sick all the time or whatever that is.
It's amazing the relationship that can be formed when you actually listen. So we do a lot of listening.
So you highly encourage parent involvement at this level along every other level, as far as you want them to be a major player in their child's success, and you want to be a co-player with that. So to say, we're going to handle this on our own, or we don't want the parents coming in, is not a true statement at all, right? I mean, you guys have totally are involved with that.
That's correct. It's critical.
Yeah.
We can't do it without them. It's really difficult to do it without them.
You guys have a few minutes to think.
I'm retired special ed. I want to know if you're involved with Peer Kindness, which is located near the high school now. Don't hate, remember Kate. And are you doing something with them?
So Pure Kindness is in several of our schools with their campaigns, their Be Kind campaigns. And they work with our schools regularly. We do have conversations with Pure Kindness. When they get a referral, for example, they will bring it to us. So they understand how we operate, we understand how they operate, and the constraints on each organization. And so hopefully we have a good partnership.
Okay, the social networking is a big problem with bullying, and Governor Polis helped pass a bill that's anti-bullying a while back.
Absolutely.
Mine's a simple one. The alphabet soup, let's see, it was STAT and SPP data. What is that?
I was wondering, where are all the acronyms, right?
Yeah. So SPP is Suicide Prevention Protocol. STAT is Student Threat Assessment Team. Yeah, I was like, oh, another team. So those are the threat to harm yourself or someone else data.
She also mentioned TA, threat assessment, SRA, suicide risk assessment. So there's a lot of acronyms in the world of education.
Hi, so I have two elementary aged kids, and this is the first year we have no homework. Can you explain how taking homework out of the house is helping with the relationships between schools and their kids? I have no communication about what's going on at school, what they're working on, and that's kind of a big concern for elementary age.
So communication about what's going on in school and homework should be two different conversations, two different things. As far as the homework goes, especially at the elementary level, there is such solid research that backs that homework makes zero difference in a student's academic achievement at the elementary level, with the exception of a student reading and practicing some basic math facts. And so that's what we are encouraging at home. One thing I know for sure in 33 years is I will never be the popular person in the room when it comes to two things. One, homework, and two is school calendar, right? Everyone has opinions on homework and school calendar. You hear it 50-50, either I don't get enough homework or I get too much homework. And so we had a team of teachers and other professionals last year that really dove into the research and came up with the guidelines for homework in the district. And so that is starting new this year. We still encourage kids to read at home on a regular basis. And we don't want them to read and have to fill out a reading log or count their minutes. We want them to read for enjoyment. We want them to read with their families things that they're interested in. We hear so often about the homework struggles and the fights that homework creates in a family. So we also believe at the elementary level, developmentally, kids need to be kids. And they will learn so much from experiences that they have with their family, where they can go on a walk and have an oral conversation, a verbal conversation that builds their oral vocabulary, which is far superior than completing a worksheet. And so there is a lot of research that has backed, and that's all on our website as well if you'd like to find out more. But as far as the communication, I really encourage you to reach out to your teacher and tell them, your child's teacher, and tell them what you're frustrated with as far as the communication and wondering what's going on at school. Those systems can be improved.
Okay, another question?
In the presentation, there was a reference to internet safety. What does that mean these days for people at various levels?
Big question. So our resource officers have taken some training on teaching kids internet safety, just meaning like you interact with people you don't, you use sites you don't, but there is a lot out there, and definitely thinking about how we can get information into people's hands about how to keep their kids safe at home as well. So some basic foundations, but there's a lot of work in that as well.
You know, technology is moving so quickly that it is impossible for schools to keep up. And so the approach that we take, in addition to all of the security measures that we can, as far as firewalls and things like that, filters and things like that, which we do have, we also have the belief that this needs to be a partnership, and we need to guide students in the ethical practice of using technology. And how to keep themselves safe. If you see something pop up on a screen, which is going to happen at home or at school sometimes, and how do you deal with that? What do you need to do to close that out? That's the world that our kids live in, and that technology is not going away. Fortunately or unfortunately, however you see the world. Another thing coming on the scene right now is artificial intelligence, and wow, if you don't know about that yet, It is exploding across the world. AI and different applications for artificial intelligence. There are school districts that are having these debates and conversations. How are we going to handle artificial intelligence as it comes into our school? I've been grappling with that since about January, February last year, when that really started to get on the scene with something called ChatGPT. Raise your hand if you have heard of ChatGPT. Great. And so with tools like that, it used to be when I was in school, we had the World Book Encyclopedia, right? I mean, all of it. We had to go home and find the knowledge in the books. Now kids have it all in their pockets, including ChatGPT. So some school districts across the nation, I saw just not too long ago, ones in New York State, they have banned things like ChatGPT. They say, oh, it's cheating. We can't have cheating, and so kids are going to use it to cheat. Well, I did a lot of reflecting. I've done a lot of research. I've done a lot of reading. I've done a lot of thinking. What I landed on was I wonder what happened, and I'm sure I didn't miss it by too much, but I wonder what happened the first time a handheld calculator was introduced in public school. I'm sure somebody said, well, we can't have handheld calculators in public school because that's cheating. Our kids will never learn their math facts, right? And so AI is going to be the future that our kids know. There are tools that are being created every single day that have artificial intelligence. And so my belief and how we are guiding our teachers and our schools is, how do we teach our students the ethical practice of using AI? When is it appropriate? When is it not appropriate? So if we create a culture of banning it and that it's fearful and it's a tool that you can use to cheat, then guess what? That's what they're going to do with it, right? But if we create a culture that it's just another technology tool, and there are good uses for it, and there are inappropriate uses for it, and we're going to figure this out together, then that creates a much more positive culture, and that's the direction that we're headed. There are different ways that you can actually use AI in the classroom. For example, a teacher right now, let's say that they are doing a history lesson on World War II, and they have a few students in their class that they know, for a variety of reasons, cannot read the textbook or the material on that particular topic. You can cut and paste a piece of text into ChatGPT or other AI tools and ask it to differentiate the reading level for a student, either up or down, and it will still have the content, but it will change some of the vocabulary so that the student can now access the content of that text and have an intelligent conversation with the rest of their class or with their teacher. And so some of the positive uses of it are just incredible. There are sites specifically for teachers on lesson planning and use of resources and grading and assessment. I could do a whole thing on AI with all of the reading that I've done on AI. But you can upload a piece of text from a student, something that they have written, and say, provide the student feedback on their writing in the following areas. And in less than a second, that feedback is given. So some of the positive tools are really incredible, so it's going to be really fun and exciting to see where this goes. Sorry, I went off on a little bit of a tangent there.
I have a very low-tech question. Is there still a PTA?
Yes, they do not call them PTAs in Montrose County. I've had a hard time getting used to that. They are PACs here. So the Parent Advisory Committee at every school. So we do have a PAC at every school.
Can you comment on the use or misuse of smartphones at Montrose High School? We parent a junior, and that cell phone is an appendage to him. Okay, and I saw something on the news a couple weeks ago. There are a couple of schools have actually banned smartphones. They collect them in the morning, put them in a pouch. kids get them in the afternoon. Could you comment on that?
Yeah, I'd be happy to comment on that. And I led schools where that has happened, where they have the pouch thing and all of that. On an aside, I was in Lake City last weekend, and this isn't just a student problem. I was outside the soda fountain, right? If you've been to Lake City, you know they have a wonderful soda fountain there. And there were about 6, what I'm going to say grandparents, because they had little grandkids that were running around every place. Every single one of them was on a cell phone, looking down and not paying attention to the kids that were right in front of them. It just broke my heart. So cell phones, absolutely. The smartphones, it is an issue for sure. In the schools that make kids bag them, do you know what they do? They bring a dummy phone. Mom and dad always have a cell phone that's not hooked up anymore, because you've upgraded or whatever. Kids get a hold of that. That's what they put in the bag, and they keep their cell phone in their pocket. So again, that's an example of we're not going to keep up with kids on this, and so we have to make sure that we are guiding alongside them, and every chance we get, working with them on the ethical practices. So when you go into the high school, into a classroom, and I'm in there quite often, you don't see kids on their phones necessarily misusing their phones. You do see kids sometimes on their phones because the teachers have instructed them to be on their phones because they've got a calculator right there, or they have an ability to search the internet right there. And so some teachers are actually having them use them for a purpose. I will not say that it's not a problem. It is a problem everywhere. But more than using them in school is the social media, and that's where this team is so beneficial, because the effects that having a cell phone and that social media piece has on our students is incredible. There is research behind, when a student posts something on a social media site, something happens in their brain if they get a like, right? If somebody likes it or gives them a smiley face or whatever it is, and something happens if they don't. If they post something and nobody reacts, that also is affecting our kids. And so in a perfect world, if I was in charge of the whole world, I would not allow students to have cell phones until they were in high school, when they were a little better able to handle it. Middle school is really difficult as far as the social aspect of having a cell phone. But banning them doesn't work.
I really appreciate your bravery coming forward and explaining what you're trying to do. One of the things that I see missing is a more direct relationship of the parents and their student child, and the working with the various groups that you've devised to handle different kinds of situations. And I see also missing an understanding of part of the curriculum of ethics and conflict of interest. And coupled with the fact that rapidly expanding and changing the background of what we understand and know as the truth at any one particular time, as it changes within monthly, because of the speed and rapidity that's being brought forward with the use of AI. What you're trying to wrap your arms around is absolutely immense. And we're losing touch with our humanity. All of the problems that you're dealing with are human problems. And the lack of the personal understanding of their place in this whole mess of life, but which is actually a remarkable miracle and an opportunity that few of us ever really develop a full understanding and appreciation of that ability to experience. And because of that, I think that you have maybe started an outline, but all the things that you're going to go ahead and deal with are the product of a mind that is floating and has no basis and no foundation to go ahead and go to. You're not, the parents are struggling like crazy just to go ahead and make sure the lights turn on when you throw the switch. And it goes all the way on through everything. And I think everybody in this room is very aware of that problem. Because of that, I hope that you don't take what you're trying to put together here in this scheme of dealing with people who are floating. Everybody ought to go ahead and deal with 5 or 6 people that are lost. And they're all lost for various different reasons. And they go ahead and then to uniformly try and just help them solve their own personal problem was way beyond anybody's capability. Because of that, I think that a more realistic approach, you're heading in the right direction, but you got to get the families involved, the parents. They, unfortunately, they are overwhelmed. The kids are overwhelmed.
Yeah, and I'm
You
sorry.
are overwhelmed. Please don't break in.
Yeah.
Thank you. And until you go ahead and more realistically deal with all that, you're going to just keep on having the mess, and you're going to go ahead and create pockets and isolation of different people in different situations that really aren't going to be able to do anything about it. In a lot of ways, you're not doing anything about it. You're just putting together a job. Thank you.
Yeah, so I'll respond to that. That's okay, Vivi. So I'm sorry that you didn't hear Megan say, because I know that she did, that working with the parents is instrumental in what we are putting together.
Very briefly.
And having that conversation, well, she did say it briefly, but it is a big part. In fact, what they are doing is creating a log with any interaction they have with a student. I happened to open up last night and look at the log of these 120 referrals, and I gotta tell you, the most prevalent entry in that log is met with the parent, had contact with the parent, had a conversation with the parent. And so there is a lot of that conversation happening. What we are putting together with these safety teams gives us more individuals to listen and to work with the family, and that really is our intent. We don't do anything in isolation for or at these kids. We work with these families because they know their student best. We can give them the information of how their student is struggling in our environment, but they know their student best. And the other real benefit of this is that collaboration with our community partnership that we talked about as well. If the student is struggling and we uncover something in the family where they need help, we already have that relationship with these organizations so that they can also come alongside the family and help them get the lights on, as you said. So it really is the intent. Is this going to work 100%? We don't know. Nobody's done it like this before. But shame on us for not trying. And so we're going to continue to try, and we're going to continue to revise, and we're going to continue to make it better because we know that's what our kids need and our families deserve.
All right, so we have time for one quick question. Let's keep it as a one quick question, and then we'll wrap up.
Could you explain a little bit more on this parent advisory committee, how you get on this, or what it does and how often it meets, please?
Sure, absolutely. So we have a parent advisory committee at every school. Every school has a page on their website that should list the members of that committee. They have bylaws that direct how a person gets on the committee. There's some nominations. Every school has a method of doing that. So all of that is on the website. It is a regular committee where they get to vote. They look at the different things like data and safety within their own school community. I'm not sure if I got all of your questions here. Is there something else?
How often they met, and
Yeah, they should meet once a quarter, so they're required by law to meet 4 times a year.
All right, so let me wrap up before we give you a well-deserved round of applause, you guys. Thank you very much. I think what the takeaway here, stop me if I'm wrong, trauma can look in so many different ways. I mean, it's not that you're going to come in and you're crying or you're acting out or you're throwing something. I mean, trauma can be your parents had a fight the night before and you can't focus all day and they have continued fights all the time. You may not have a coat that you bring to school, that's simple, or it can be something major like, I don't think they have numbers yet, but there's a fair amount of kids that are homeless in our district that actually live in cars. And if you don't think that doesn't affect their ability to learn and to get to school and to focus, and maybe they haven't eaten, they can get food, they can get free breakfast and lunch at our schools. That's a big deal. And that is all that some of our kids, especially what I call our inner city school, Northside School, they don't even have access to computers at home. So when you take them, and that's traumatizing, when you put that in front of them and say, now do this test, that's traumatizing in itself. And it's kind of like I was telling Matt last week, this approach, which again, Ron, you're right. I mean, it's going the right direction and it's going to be a great program. It's like the case management of medicine. I mean, now if you get a disease or a problem, you've got your doctor, you've got your dietitian, you've got your physical therapist, you've got all these people working to make you healthy. And this is the same thing that the school group is doing, is they've got case management for these kiddos to make them to be successful critical thinkers, get the parents involved, which they want them to be involved, and it's a win-win after that. I mean, parents become better parents, students become better students, teachers can teach, kids can learn. Let's hope it works. I know it's new to you. I applaud the fact that you're trying it. I mean, like, shame on you for not trying. So now, that being said, I have one more thing to say. Joe Brummett, who was a principal for years, aren't you like sitting here going, I'm so glad I retired?